This is the Registered Behavior Technician course presented by Shaza Attar. The course content was created by Shaza Attar and is the property of Autism Therapy and Training, Inc. All rights are reserved. This training program is based on the Behavior Analyst Certification Board 2018 RBT Task List 2nd edition and is designed to meet the 40-hour training requirement for the RBT credential. The program is offered independent of the BACB. Remember, in each class, we will have our active listening, a quiz, and a competency assessment. Welcome everyone to our prompt and prompt fading class. When you teach your learner, it's important that they can be independent after you have taught them. Imagine you spent time teaching someone and after a day you noticed that they had forgotten or hadn't maintained any of those skills. That would be quite disappointing. So how do we program for that? A prompt is providing assistance to the learner to evoke the correct response. For example, if you ask a learner to clap, you will need to physically assist the child to clap their hands. Without prompts, the child could not engage in the right behavior to access reinforcement in order for the behavior to improve over time. It must exist so that it can be reinforced. There are a few different ways in which we can evoke a response. The first is a physical prompt. This is when the RBT or educator provides complete assistance and movement to produce the target behavior. The RBT will physically guide the learner's hands or body until the response is completed. This is an intrusive but effective prompt. What I mean by intrusive is you're getting into the client's space and physically moving their hands or body. This can be aversive to some, so we want to use it but fade as quickly as we can. This can be used during routine activities such as hand washing. Think of this as a hand-over-hand approach, such as helping someone pick something up, helping someone clap their hands, helping someone walk to their cubby, and so on. This is the most amount of prompting you can give. Let me demonstrate the prompt for you. All right, everyone, I'm going to model how to do a physical prompt when doing an imitative skill. Now, of course, you can use physical prompts when a child is walking to the washroom and you physically guide them to the washroom. But for the purpose of this course, I'm just going to show you how to prompt at the table with different imitative skills. Okay, here we go. Do this. Okay. Do this. Do this. Great. Now, I want you to pay attention to one thing, the way that you are prompting the learner and making sure that you and your team do it the same way. This is a really good example of where a lot of therapists may prompt in one way while another therapist may prompt another way. Let me demonstrate this. So the skill, let's say, is I want them to imitate a rolling of the arms. So I model it and then I'm going to physically prompt. Now I'm taking one arm and rolling it back. Now I can also do it forward. So this is back and this is forward. So what's important with this skill is ensuring that you and your team communicate as to how you guys are prompting the skill. If one person is prompting the child to roll their arms forward while the other one is prompting their arms back, that could cause a little bit of confusion, and then you might find that that skill is actually not progressing. So little things like that may make a big difference for your learner. So pay attention to that when you're doing some physical prompts and ensure that you and your team are doing it the same way. The next one is a gestural prompt. This is when the RBT uses a point or a gesture to evoke the response. For example, an RBT teaching a child to identify a picture on the table may point to the correct picture rather than using a hand-over-hand approach. Let me demonstrate this one for you as well. The next prompt that I'd like to show you is the gestural prompt. Now here I'm going to gesture to the correct response so the learner can engage in that behavior. For this learner, I wouldn't need to use a hand-over-hand approach or a physical prompt because they don't need that. And so if you can go with a less intrusive prompt, that's great. So let's give this one a try. Show me the bear. So that's what a gestural prompt would look like. I'm gesturing to the correct response, and then the child can engage in the correct behavior. Let's try a different one. Show me your nose. Touch your head. Good. So you could see that all I'm doing is using my index finger to point to or gesture to the correct response ultimately. Great. Let's move on to the next one. A verbal prompt is when the therapist provides a vocal model to produce the target behavior. This is using an echoic to evoke the correct response. This is used when teaching echoics, tacts, and intraverbals. For example, when asked, "What does a dog say?" the RBT would say, "Woof woof," prompting the correct response. Let's see how this one looks. The next prompt is a verbal prompt. So here I'm going to say whatever the item is and have the individual echo what it is that I'm saying. So now you can use this when you're teaching a tact program or an intraverbal program. Let me demonstrate. What is it? Zebra.
Zebra.
Great. And you can see here, I held up the card so that the learner could see what it is, and I said, "What is it?" so that they could answer that question, which is, "What is it?" And I immediately prompted zebra, and they echoed zebra. So that would be a verbal prompt. Let's try another one. Tell me something that swims in the ocean. Fish.
Fish.
Great. Again, this time it was an intraverbal question that I was asking, and I verbally prompted fish, and they echoed fish. A model prompt is when the RBT demonstrates the behavior and the learner will copy. For example, if playing with Lego and stacking them, the RBT may stack 3 blocks and have the learner do the same. You can model a wide range of behaviors and actions such as waving, clapping, washing hands, playing. Model prompts can be used with learners that have strong imitation skills. Let's take a look at this one. So the next one is a model prompt. Here I'm going to show the learner what the behavior is and they're going to do it. So let's try it. Show me waving. Great. Now, this was not an imitative skill, although it may look like it. Here, I'm actually testing their receptive skill. So I'm saying, show me waving, but I'm using the model so I can get them to engage in the correct response. And that's what the prompt is all about. It's about assisting the learner to engage in the correct response so then I could reinforce it. Let's try another one. Show me knocking. Show me clapping. Great. Textual prompts allow an RBT to use written prompts to help the learner engage in the correct behavior. This could be schedules or agenda to help the learner complete their work. For example, for some of our learners, we use a textual prompt to remind them to do their work quietly or to raise their hand when done. You can use textual prompts to replace verbal prompts if the learner can read. For example, we were teaching a yes-no program and the learner was struggling with the verbal prompt. We added a textual prompt, yes and no, on a cue card and prompted them instead of using a vocal prompt. Let's take a look at that one. Sometimes when you are prompting a learner, you don't want to use a verbal prompt and they can read, so you can actually use a textual prompt. So here what I have written on this card is shoe, and the picture that I'll be showing the learner is a shoe. But what I'm going to do is, rather than me saying, what is it, shoe, I'm just going to say, what is it? And I'm going to show them the word shoe, and they'll read it instead of me providing that verbal prompt. So let's take a look at how that would look. What is it?
Shoe.
What is it?
Shoe.
Great job. So you could see on the transfer trial, I flipped over my word so that they're not reading the word shoe on that trial. Picture prompts allow the RBT to use visuals to prompt the learner through a series of steps, such as getting dressed, like a visual schedule. Pictures can be used to prompt the correct response when teaching intraverbals. The learner would tag the picture instead of the RBT prompting verbally, as we'll see in this video model. Now, sometimes I may not want to use a verbal prompt when I'm teaching an intraverbal, and I might just use a picture type prompt. So let me show you how that would look. Tell me something that swims in the ocean.
Fish.
Great. As you can see here, I said, tell me something that swims in the ocean, and I just held the picture. And the child was able to look at the picture and ultimately tagged it, and that's how they were able to say fish. Now, we're not done here, because remember, these are all just the prompt levels. We need to eventually fade these prompts, and we'll get into that in just a moment. Children with autism will need prompts to learn new behaviors. In fact, we all need prompts to learn things. I need someone to show me how to do something new for the first time before I can do it independently. However, if these prompts are not faded correctly, the children will become prompt dependent. A prompt dependent learner or individual is unable to produce the target behavior without assistance and relies on the adult. The learner is attending to the prompt and not the target response. Fading your prompts are crucial. If you don't fade your prompts, you'd have a prompt-dependent learner. That's not what we want. We want to teach your learner and let them become independent. The goal is that you can fade yourself from their life at some point. Always keep that in mind. So, how do we fade our prompts? You can fade prompts by using a most to least prompt, which is when a practitioner provides the most amount of prompting and gradually then fades. For example, from hand-over-hand prompts to a gestural prompt. This is a really good way to ensure you're moving away from full prompts. Let me show you how this one would look. All right, now let's go through how to actually fade these prompts. Remember, the prompt is assistance, and we don't want the child to rely on our prompts because they'll never be able to do the skill independently. The goal is that we fade these prompts so then they can start engaging in the correct behavior independently and we can reinforce it. So let's talk about the fading process for some of these skills. So one of the first ones that we did was a physical prompt. And I'm going to go into clapping and just show you how that may look. Do this. Do this. Great. So now you can see that I prompted the response by doing a full physical prompt and getting their hands to engage in that clapping behavior. And then next, I modeled it again and allowed them to engage in that correct behavior. And then I would, of course, reinforce that behavior immediately. And you want that trial to follow immediately after your prompted trial, because they just experienced that skill. Chances are they'll engage in that behavior immediately right after it. So let me do that for you one more time and I'll walk you through it as we go through. So here's the SD. Do this. I'm going to physically prompt and let them engage in the correct behavior. Now I'm going to do it again. Do this. And so this would be my transfer trial. This is me fading, and now the learner would engage in the correct behavior. And now, of course, I would reinforce. Now, sometimes you don't get that on the transfer trial and the child actually makes a mistake. What do? Let's go through the error correction. Do this. Do this. Do this. Do this. Good. Now you can see the child made an error, and I went in and I restated my SD, which is really, really important. So be sure that you do that. And then on the transfer trial of that error correction, I went in with a partial prompt to give a little bit of assistance so they don't make an error. I'm going to walk you through this one again so you can really see it. Okay, here we go. Do this. I'm going to prompt. Do this. So here's where the error occurs. Okay, so the child's doing the wrong thing. I'm going to just get their hands to a neutral position because I don't want to reinforce any of this. So I'm going to model it again, or present the SD. Do this. Go in with the full physical prompt. And then I'm going to go for the transfer trial. Do this. But now on that transfer trial, I'm going to just give a partial prompt. I'm just going to be there just in case and just kind of get the hands going for that skill. Now, of course, you want to do this for any of the skills, whether it was arms up, whether it was touching their nose. You want to go in on that error correction transfer trial with a partial prompt. Okay, let's continue. Least to most prompts is when the practitioner gives the learner the opportunity to attempt the skill without help, then gradually increases the level of prompting. For example, prompting the elbow, then gradually increasing the prompt to hand over hand as more errors occur. The issue here is we're allowing errors to occur. If you don't teach appropriately and don't have a clean trial, you can accidentally reinforce the error with the correct response. Let's take a look at this one. Show me waving. Good job. How would you wave to mommy? Can you do it like this? Like this. Turn your hand. Turn your hand for me, like this. Like this. Yeah, see, you turned it. Gotcha. Good job. Okay, let's do a Scrabble word, take a stretch, and then get back into it. The word is BAPS. B-A-P-S. And this is a soft bread roll. The word is BAPS. Okay, let's get back into fading our prompts. I'll tell you a story about Mikey. When I took over from his therapist, I noticed he was making a lot of errors. She was teaching him colors, and when she asked him what color, showing him a purple card, he would say, "No purple." When he was demanding for chips, he would say, "I want chip, yeah?" I was a bit confused as to why he was speaking in this way. So I watched how she was teaching him and found that she would allow him to respond. When he would make an error, she'd correct it. But she was using a least to most strategy. However, she was missing something valuable in her teaching, which I'll discuss in just a moment. He would make the error, then she would correct it. But her trials got a little bit messy, and his string of errors became evident in his speech. He started adding the errors into the request or label phrases. He was chaining his errors. I'll talk more about chaining in another class. But you can see something was not going so well for this little guy. I'll come back to the story in a little bit, so don't forget about Mikey and this error. Next is graduated guidance. This is when the practitioner prompts when needed only. You follow the learner closely, but without touching them, unless they need your help. This is a really nice way of prompting a learner that is more independent. You can jump in and out when needed. Let's take a look at this video. So when it comes to graduated guidance, the key here is you are going to provide some prompting and then fade your hands as you start to see the learner engage in the activity. So in this example, it's going to be a puzzle, and what I'm going to do is have the learner take the puzzle piece and I'm going to help them put it in. Now, as I start to see independence, and let's say they're doing it, I'm going to fade my hands slowly away so that they could do it on their own. Good job, all right? So as you can see, by the time we got to zebra and the giraffe, they were starting to do it independently. And that's how graduated guidance is. I'm gonna just walk you through this one more time. Let's say I want them to put them in. I'm going to have the learner take it. I'm going to prompt fully, and they're putting it in. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm really paying attention to their hand. So as they start to do it, I can slowly fade my hand away. And if I don't need to assist, then I can actually move my hand. So you're really in tune with their hand and really paying attention to, are they doing it independently or not. Now let's do one more example, and here you're going to see that the learner does not do it at all for any of them, and how my hands may respond to this. So again, I'm going to physically prompt. Okay, now I can see that she's not going towards the next one. Okay, so I'm still prompting. So as you can see, I'm doing all the work here, still not showing any independence here. Good. So I had to, in this situation, prompt the entire time. So I really felt that the weight of her hand was, I was really holding her hand, and I was doing more of the work. Often you'll feel that their hand is starting to do the action, and then that's how you know, or possibly their body, depending on if you're prompting them to, let's say, move from one area to another, and so on. Delay is when the practitioner increases the time of prompting. For example, you may prompt at a 0-second delay, then 2-second delay, then 4-second delay, and so on. Here, you run the risk of the learner making a mistake because you could wait 10 seconds before prompting. This long delay could teach a learner to respond slowly or make errors in between, which will need to be corrected. So you don't want to get a long string of errors in the trial. So be cautious when using these kinds of prompt procedures. Let's take a look at how I delay my prompt here. If we were doing prompting at a 0-second delay, I would give it to them and say, do the puzzle, and I would prompt immediately and have them do the puzzle. That was a 0-second delay. There was no delay between the prompt, the SD, and the prompt. So now I'm going to have the puzzle here, the puzzle piece here, and I'm going to say do the puzzle, but I'm going to give 3 seconds. If they don't engage in the behavior within 3 seconds, I'm going to assist. If they do it, then I don't need to assist. Here we go. Do the puzzle. Good. So as you can see here, the learner did not engage in the behavior within that 3 seconds, so I had to prompt. Now if they did it, then that would be fine. If it was a 5-second delay, same thing. Do the puzzle. So 5 seconds are up. They didn't engage in the behavior. So that's the time delay there. Now, if they did it anytime within that 5 seconds, then that would be considered a correct response if that's how you were collecting your data. So here's my 5-second delay. I'm going to see if they're going to do it anytime within that 5 seconds. Do the puzzle. Good, so they did it. That's excellent. So it gives them an opportunity to engage in the correct behavior without us prompting immediately. And that's time delay. When using verbal prompts, you can fade to phonemic prompts or partial echoic prompts. For example, when prompting the response for what does a dog say, you can fade your prompt to w instead of saying woof. When using full physical prompts, you can fade to less prompts. So if you were prompting hand over hand, you can fade to prompting at the wrist, then elbow, and so on. Let's take a look at a partial prompt in these. What does a bear say? Grr.
Grr.
Very good. The transfer trial, do this. But now on that transfer trial, I'm going to just give a partial prompt. I'm just going to be there just in case and just kind of get the hands going for that skill. Now, okay, let's do our quiz to give you a break from all this information. Good luck. You take the learner's hand and have them touch the book on the table when asked to. Touch the book. What kind of prompt is this? A. Physical prompt. B. Gestural prompt. C. Verbal prompt. Or D. Model prompt. And the correct response is A. Physical prompt. You point to the wheel on the car when asking your learner to find the wheel. What kind of prompt is this? A. Physical prompt, B. Gestural prompt, C. Verbal prompt, or D. Model prompt? And the correct response is B. Gestural prompt. You say clap your hands and clap. What kind of prompt is this? A. Physical prompt, B. Gestural prompt, C. Verbal prompt, or D. Model prompt? And the correct response is D. Model prompt. You say clap your hands and take the learner's hands and make them clap. What kind of prompt is this? A. Physical prompt, B. Gestural prompt, C. Verbal prompt, or D. Model prompt? And the correct response is A. Physical prompt. You say you clap your and then say hands. What kind of prompt is this? A. Physical prompt, B. Gestural prompt, C. Verbal prompt, or D. Model prompt? And the correct response is C. Verbal prompt. How do you improve stimulus control? A. Don't prompt, B. Put lots of things on the table, C. Reduce distractions, or D. All of the above? And the correct response is C. Reduce distractions. How do you improve stimulus control? A. Don't prompt, B. Reinforce appropriate behaviors, C. Increase distractions, or D. All of the above? And the correct response is B. Reinforce appropriate behaviors. How do you improve stimulus control? A. Keep teaching fast-paced to decrease off-task behaviors and downtime. B. Ignore all behaviors. C. Increase distractions. Or D. All of the above? And the correct response is A. Keep teaching fast-paced to decrease off-task behaviors and downtime. Airless teaching is when the RBT quickly prompts the correct response at a 0-second delay. This minimizes errors and improves the effectiveness of teaching. For example, the RBT says clap your hands and immediately prompts clapping. There is no time delay here. This is a very effective method of teaching. You don't allow the learner to make any errors. Look at these examples. How would you use airless teaching with your prompts? Let's take a look at intraverbals. Our target is, what does a cat say? How would this sound when teaching using airless teaching and a verbal prompt? Well, I would say, what does a cat say? Meow. As you can see, I asked the question and immediately provided a response. Remember, this is a 0-second delay. There's no delay between the SD and prompting the response. I want to ensure that the learner does not say or do anything so it does not get chained in the correct response. Now, sometimes a learner may say the entire SD along with the response. So they may say, what does a cat say? Meow. You need to watch out for this. Speak to your supervisor about these kinds of issues. Now remember, if I prompted meow meow, I need to ensure that the learner copies my behavior. I'm prompting meow, they need to say meow. Let's take a look at this video. What does a bear say? Grrr.
Grr.
How about tacting cookie using a verbal prompt and Airless Teaching. How would that look? As you can hear, my response follows immediately after the SD. When you're teaching ATT, present a clear SD, such as, what is it? What am I doing? The learner will label the item, picture, or action depending on what you're presenting them with. The prompt in this case is a vocal prompt that follows immediately. Okay, let's try a receptive skill using a gestural prompt and Airless Teaching. How would this one look? Let's use the example of teaching nouns receptively at the table, placing 3 to 5 pictures on the table and ask the learner, find the cat, where's the dog, and so on. Provide a gestural prompt to the correct response and be sure that the learner engages in the correct behavior. Do this. Okay. Do this. Do this. Show me your nose. Show me the bear. Touch your head. What is it? Zebra.
Zebra.
Tell me something that swims in the ocean. Fish.
Fish.
Great. Remember, whenever you're teaching a new skill and using prompts, you need to ensure that the learner engages in the behavior. I often observe many therapists that use gestural prompts but don't pay attention to the learner's behavior. They have to do it too. If using a model prompt, same thing. If I model an action such as clapping, I need to see that the learner copies my behavior as well. Let's take a look at teaching receptive pictures on the table. Show me the bear. Transfer of stimulus control is fading the prompt from the current stimulus used to the correct stimulus condition, allowing the learner to engage in the target behavior independently. For example, if teaching the learner to imitate clapping, the end goal for this program target is the learner imitates. When using a full physical prompt, you're providing assistance for the learner to engage in the correct behavior. However, the learner is still not imitating. Therefore, you need to transfer the stimulus from the hand-over-hand condition to the imitation condition. Did I lose you? Let me break this down. So think of the transfer of stimulus control as a stimulus prompt that is faded to its natural occurring stimulus. So if I wanted the learner to label a picture as attacked, I'm using an echoic prompt to evoke the response. But I need to fade that so the learner responds as attacked. If you were teaching a tact, you would use an echoic to tact transfer. If teaching an intraverbal, we would use a tact to intraverbal transfer. If you were teaching a mand, we would use an echoic to mand transfer. With a transfer trial, we want to get the behavior under stimulus control of the SD. So how do you do this? Here is an example. We're teaching the learner to respond to an intraverbal question, what does a dog say? That's the SD. The RBT uses Airless Teaching and prompts the correct response immediately at a 0-second delay and says, woof woof. It's important that when we prompt the learner, that the learner engages in that behavior. So the learner must echo and say, woof woof. Once the child echoes, the RBT can repeat the SD again. This is our transfer trial. It's transferring from the echoic to the intraverbal. Tell me what a dog says, so that I can evoke an independent response, fading my prompting and allowing the learner to answer without my help. Now the learner will respond independently. The learner just had an opportunity to engage in the correct behavior, followed by trying it alone. And this is where and when I would reinforce the behavior. So the next prompt is the gestural, which I showed you guys what that looks like, but now we're going to talk about how to actually fade it. So remember, with the gestural, I'm going to point to the item that I want the learner to engage in. So if I wanted the learner to touch, let's say, the bear that's on the table, I'm going to use the gestural prompt, but now we're going to talk about the fading. So let's go through it and then we'll talk about it. Show me the bear. Show me the bear. Great. Simple enough, right? Now, the thing to note here is I'm showing them what it is, which is, kind of like a model, but I'm gesturing to it that it's there. And then on the transfer trial, I'm restating the SD and I'm having them engage in that behavior of finding the bear. What I like to do on the transfer trial with, a lot of these picture card skills is to rotate the array and the cards and how it's displayed. So let me show you what that would look like in a teaching trial. So here we go. Show me the bear. Great. Show me the bear. Great. So now we're going to do the verbal imitation. So I'll say, what is it? Bear. And they're going to say,
Bear.
and then I'll say, what is it? So here's my transfer trial.
Bear.
Okay, so on the transfer trial, I'm going to allow the learner to engage in the correct behavior by not telling them what it is. I'm not doing that verbal prompt anymore. So let's try that one more time. Here we go. What is it? Bear.
Bear.
What is it?
Bear.
Great. So I provided the echoic response or the verbal prompt, and then I transferred it, or I faded my prompt to saying nothing so that they engage in the correct behavior. I want to walk you guys through this in terms of verbal behavior and understanding it in a different way. Yes, we're talking about prompts here, but when I want the child to tact what this is, and I say, what is it? I want them to label that this is a bear, but I have to provide them with a prompt or some kind of assistance in order for them to engage in that behavior. In order for that to happen, I might use a verbal prompt or an echoic prompt in a sense. So I would then tell them bear. And so if I left it like that as that kind of prompt and ended my trial there, would that be the right verbal domain that I am targeting or that I'm trying to tackle in my teaching? So understanding what your teaching objective is really important. So if I say, what is it? I'm working on a tact response or a label response. And so I want the child to be able to look at it and to name what it is. But if I said, what is it? Bear, and they said bear, well, I've just gotten an echoic response. So I need to do the transfer trial. So I'm transferring from the echoic response to the label or the tact. Okay, let's try that one more time. What is it? Bear.
Bear.
What is it?
Bear.
Great. Okay. All right, so here's another verbal prompt that you might use in teaching. For this one, I'm going to work on what does an animal say, and I'm going to provide the verbal prompt. So let's walk you through it first. I'm going to go through the example first, and then I'll walk you through what all the different steps are. What does a bear say? Grrr.
Grr.
What does a bear say?
Grr.
Great. As you can see here, I presented the SD, what does a bear say? And I then provided the verbal prompt, grrr. And the learner echoed and said, grrr. Then I restated my SD, what does a bear say? And they said, grrr, which was the correct response. All right, let's do a secret word. The word is watermelon. Again, the word is watermelon. Okay, so we've talked about prompting and fading these prompts. One thing I want you to remember is eye contact. Again, when a learner is being taught, we're reinforcing and providing that social approval when they engage in the correct behavior. So when they are responding, they should also look at you to receive that feedback from you. I'll talk about this more in our Successful Teaching Procedures class, but just keep that in mind. Be sure your learner is attending after the prompted trial. Often children or learners will repeat what they last heard or don't even look at the stimulus. For example, if you're teaching the learner to tact ball, you might ask on the transfer trial, what is it? And the learner doesn't even look at the item and says, ball. Adding a distractor trial in between could help reduce these errors and help the learner to attend to the stimulus. Always speak to your supervisor about these kinds of issues so that you and your supervisor can address them effectively. So, I would say, what is it? And show the picture of ball. And prompt ball verbally. The learner echoes ball. Then I can say, clap your hands. This should be a high probability question. Don't do something the learner doesn't know. Then deliver the transfer trial. Repeat the SD and show the picture again. What is it? And the learner says, ball independently. When teaching receptive identification and placing pictures on the table, you ask your learner to touch the circle and prompt them. Rather than paying attention on your transfer trial, you say touch the circle and they're looking at the person walking by. And they still touch the circle. You would want to question if they really knew what circle was or memorized its location. So what do? Well, you'll need to rearrange the array as so the learner doesn't memorize the location of the card. Move the circle to the end or shuffle them and restate the SD. If the learner touches the correct one, great, reinforce that. But if they don't, then you have some teaching to do. Let me demonstrate this one for you. So when you're doing a gestural prompt, you're going to point to the correct target for the learner to engage in that behavior. So for example, if I said, show me the bear, I'm pointing to it so that they can engage in that behavior. Now, once they engage in that behavior and they touch bear, I want to do my transfer trial. So here, then I would say, touch the bear. Now, if I just left the array the same way, then the learner might just touch the bear because they've memorized the location of it. So on your transfer trial, I would really recommend that you vary the array. So I might say, show me the bear, they touch it, then I rearrange, and I can say, find the bear, and they would then point to it. If they do it on the transfer trial after I've moved it, that's really good. The other thing that I hope that you noticed in that is that I also varied my SD. And that's really important when it comes to teaching. Now we'll talk about this when we go through successful teaching procedures. When that error happens, you'll need to run an error correction. Error corrections are used when the client makes a mistake. The practitioner will restate the instruction and prompt the correct response. The important part of an error correction is that you restate the instruction so that you do not chain the incorrect response with the correct response. You don't want your learner to say, I want chip, yeah, or no purple. Going back to Mikey, what the therapist did was correct the response without an error correction. This is what happened with the therapist. This is what not to do, but I want to demonstrate the error so you can learn from it. Triangle. Say brother.
Brother.
Show me the bear. Rub your hands. Show me your shoulder. Good. And touch the bike. And where are your ears? Good. What color is this?
Red.
Show me waving. Good. What color is it? Mikey said blue. She said, no, purple. What color is it? He said, no, purple. Now she reinforced this response, and that's why he was answering in this way. So always remember to do an error correction, then rotate your SD or change it up. Similarly, with the chip example, so she would hold the chip and say, do you want chip? He would say, I want chip. And then she would prompt, yeah. Trial after trial and being reinforced, he started saying, I want chip, yeah. The teaching and prompting was not effective, and you can see how he chained the response, which would now be considered an incorrect response. I share these stories because it's a learning experience, and my hope is you can remember these examples and ensure that you don't forget these crucial parts of teaching. Here's an example of another chained error I've seen. You ask the learner, what does a dog say? And they say, meow. You say, woof. What does the dog say? Child responds, meow, woof. As instructors, we need to be clear in our teaching and have a nice clean trial. Here's an example of a clean trial. that you can practice. The RBT says, "What does a dog say?" The learner responds, "Meow." This is an error. The RBT says, "What does a dog say?" This is your error correction, restating the SD. The RBT immediately prompts, "Woof." Use Airless Teaching here. The learner echoes, "Woof." This is the echoic following the prompted trial. Now, after an error correction, we don't just stop here. We always want to get to an independent trial. We need to restate the SD, "What does a dog say?" The learner will say the correct response. Let's see how this would look. Now, what happens if the learner makes a mistake repeatedly or on the error correction? Well, you can use a partial prompt on the transfer trial. Here, you're giving the learner a prompt but fading it and avoiding more errors. Remember, we don't want the learner to be prompt dependent. We don't want the learner to make mistakes either. So let's walk through this example. The RBT says, "What flies in the sky?" The learner says, "Blue." The RBT says, "What flies in the sky?" and immediately prompts, "Bird." The learner echoes, "Bird." The RBT says, "What flies in the sky?" and now the RBT is going to provide a partial prompt, "B." The learner says, "Bird." Then you can reinforce. Now that's a long trial, but we've corrected the mistake properly and prompted the correct response and reinforced that. It's better not to take any shortcuts. Let's watch this video model. What does a bear say? Grrr.
Grr.
What does a bear say?
Meow.
What does a bear say? Grrr.
Grr.
What does a bear say? Grrr.
Grr.
Very good. Now you can see here that the learner made a mistake and said meow on the transfer trial. The error correction was me restating the SD, "What does a bear say?" I prompted immediately with that verbal prompt, and on the transfer trial I used a partial phonemic prompt and I said grr, just to get that going so that they don't make an error. Do this. Do this. Do this. Do this. Good. Now you can see the child made an error and I went in and I restated my SD, which is really, really important. So be sure that you do that. And then on the transfer trial of that error correction, I went in with a partial prompt to give a little bit of assistance so they don't make an error. I'm going to walk you through this one again so you can really see it. Okay, here we go. Do this. I'm going to prompt. Do this. So here's where the error occurs. Okay, so the child's doing the wrong thing. I'm going to just get their hands to a neutral position because I don't want to reinforce any of this. So I'm going to model it again, or present the SD. Do this. Go in with the full physical prompt. And then I'm going to go for the transfer trial. Do this. But now on that transfer trial, I'm going to just give a partial prompt. I'm just going to be there just in case and just kind of get the hands going for that skill. Now, of course, you want to do this for any of the skills, whether it was arms up, whether it was touching their nose. You want to go in on that error correction transfer trial with a partial prompt. Let's take a quick stretch break and do a Marvel character here before we continue. The character is Iron Man, one of my favorites. Okay. Remember, it's Iron Man. All right, let's continue. Airless teaching reduces the chances of errors, so ensure all new behaviors are prompted immediately to avoid any of those errors. If an error occurs, be sure to restate the instruction so that you don't chain the responses. Using a transfer trial will fade your prompts, allowing your learner to respond independently and accessing reinforcers contingent on the independent response. All previously acquired skills should no longer be prompted. All prompts should be faded. These can be placed in your high probability box. If your learner has mastered skills but is not responding to you, this could be due to a lack of instructional control. So we need to be sure that you have gained that instructional control prior. If a learner is making errors with acquired responses, make a note of it. You can make a note of it on the back of the cue card, writing down the date. For example, you can write incorrect May 5th, 2019. After 3 incorrect dates, you may need to pull that card out and reteach it. Again, you'd need to speak to your supervisor here about this one. Okay, so I want to model one other way of prompting and fading. This is a method we often use at the center, especially when we're working towards building discrimination training procedures. Again, our goal as practitioners is to teach children how to learn. I want my learner to understand the concept of imitation and not necessarily imitating just clapping. Great work, everyone. Let's do our quiz, and I'll end off with my final thoughts. Good luck. Airless teaching is when A. The RBT prompts the correct response at a 3-second delay. B. The RBT prompts the correct response at a 0-second delay. C. The RBT prompts the correct response at a 10-second delay. D. The RBT does not prompt the correct response. And the correct response is B. The RBT prompts the correct response at a 0-second delay. And the correct response is B. The RBT prompts the correct response at a 0-second delay. The therapist had 3 pictures on the table and said, "Point to the cookie," while pointing to the cookie. This is A. Verbal prompt. B. Gestural prompt. C. Physical prompt. D. Picture prompt. E. Textual prompt. F. None of the above. And the correct response is B. Gestural prompt. The therapist is teaching animal sounds. She says, "What does a dog say?" and prompts woof woof. What kind of prompt did she use? A. Verbal prompt. B. Gestural prompt. C. Physical prompt. D. Picture prompt. E. Textual prompt. Or F. None of the above. And the correct response is A. Verbal prompt. The therapist is teaching the child to identify a stop sign, and she asks the learner, "What sign is this?" and places a cue card with the word stop sign on it. What kind of prompt is this? A. Verbal prompt. B. Gestural prompt. C. Physical prompt. D. Picture prompt. E. Textual prompt. Or F. None of the above. And the correct response is E. Textual prompt. The therapist is teaching clapping and puts her hands over the learners to make them clap. What kind of prompt is she using? A. Verbal prompt. B. Gestural prompt. C. Physical prompt. D. Picture prompt. E. Textual prompt. F. None of the above. And the correct response is C. Physical prompt. Each time the teacher is teaching hand washing, the learner always requires prompts to pump the soap. What is wrong with this? A. The learner does not know how to pump the soap. B. The learner needs more practice. C. The learner is prompt dependent. Or D. All of the above. And the correct response is C. The learner is prompt dependent. Well done. The teacher says, "Spell cat," and the child writes cat. This is A, amand, B, attacked, C, intraverbal, D, echoic, E, receptive, F, textual, or G, transcription. And the correct response is G, transcription. If you recall back from our verbal behavior class, this was one of the questions. So we're just testing to see if you still remember. If you don't, go back and practice. Child says mummy when someone says mummy. This is A, amand, B, attacked, C, intraverbal, D, echoic, E, receptive, F, textual, or G, transcription. And the correct response is D, echoic. What are some important parts of an error correction? A, don't prompt the correct response. B, provide a time delay. C, to restate the SD, or D, all of the above. And the correct response is C, to restate the SD. What are some important parts of an error correction? A, don't restate the SD. B, prompt the correct response. C, provide a time delay. D, all of the above. And the correct response is B, prompt the correct response. Okay, welcome back everybody. So today we're going to do some imitation cards and we're going to show you guys how to go through a nice flow at your table with your learner. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, give me a high five. Let's get started. Do this. 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 Good job. And now I'm going to show you guys receptive. All right, here we go. We're going to do some receptive instructions. Yes. Show me your ears. Touch your eyes. Show me your mouth. Find your nose. Where's your chin? Show me waving. Show me blowing. And where's your head? Very good. Good job. Now I'm going to show you guys some receptive instruction or receptive identification. So here we go. I like a messy array. All right, here we go. Can you find the penguin? All right, let's try that again. I want you to do it with a point. Okay, that's a nice way to show me. Okay, let's try that again. Find the penguin. Show me the zebra. Where's the banana? Can you find the bear? Where's the bunny? Oh, let's try that one more time. Where's the bunny? You got it. Good job. And find the alligator. Good work. High five. Okay. All right, everybody. So let's move on to our next domain, which is attacked. And this is how I like to typically do it. Have my cards on the table, and then I'm just going to flip through, show, and then I usually flip them down. Okay, here we go. Are you ready? What is it?
It's a banana.
What is it?
It's an alligator.
What is it?
It's a bear.
What is it?
It's a bunny.
What's this?
It's a zebra.
Tell me what this one is.
It's a penguin.
You got it. Okay. The next one we're going to do is an intraverbal response. Okay, here we go. Are you ready?
Yeah.
What does a cat say?
Meow.
And where can you find bananas?
In a store.
Tell me something that has wings.
A bird.
You got it. Very good. Okay. All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to put it all together for you, but I'm also going to add in some conditional questions and yes/no questions, so pay attention to that as I go through it. We have our nice messy array. We've got our learner, and we're ready to go. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Say dog.
Dog.
What's this?
It's a fox.
Show me the banana. What's this?
It's a koala.
Great, do this. Where's the bear? Do this. Where's the penguin? Find the alligator. What color is this?
It's purple.
Very good. Now I want you guys to notice that I'm changing up my SD. My pace is going pretty fast, or as fast as I can, where the learner can still respond. I don't want to go too fast for them or too slow because I don't want to lose them either. And find the zebra. Where's the banana? Is this a cat?
No.
Is this an alligator or a monkey?
It's an alligator.
You got that right. And what's this?
It's a bear.
Good. What's this?
It's a bike.
And say apple.
Apple.
And touch your eyes. What's this?
It's a king.
Good. Is this a circle or a triangle?
It's a triangle.
And is this a cat?
No.
Is this a dog?
No.
Is this purple?
No.
Is it a penguin?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it. Do this. Very good. Okay. So I want you guys to pay attention to the eye contact here and my reinforcement. All right, here we go. Touch your nose. Very good. What's this?
It's a bear.
Good. And tell me what this is.
It's a banana.
Nice job. And what color is this?
It's black and white.
Very good. So now I want you guys to pay attention to the trial, the prompt, the airless teaching, the transfer trial, and then the error correction. What is it? Yak.
Yak.
What is it?
It's a bull.
What is it? Yak.
It's a yak.
What is it?
It's a yak.
Very good. Can you find the penguin? All right, let's try that again. I want you to do it with a point. Okay, that's a nice way to show me. Okay, let's try that again. Can you find the penguin? Show me the zebra. Where's the banana? Can you find the bear? Where's the bunny? Oh, let's try that one more time. Where's the bunny? You got it. Good job. And find the alligator. Good work. High five. My final thoughts. Prompting is an important part of teaching. If we don't prompt our learners, they won't be able to engage in the correct behavior and will not access reinforcement. Be mindful of your prompt and prompt level. We don't want to provide hand-over-hand prompts forever because our learners will become prompt dependent. So fading is also crucial. We don't want to do drastic jumps from fading our prompts either. Gradual is always best. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you at our next class. Show me the bear. Do this. Show me your nose. What is it? Zebra.
Zebra.
Touch your head. Do this. Tell me something that swims in the ocean. Fish.
Fish.
Do this. What does a bear say? Grr. Show me waving. Good job. How would you wave to mommy? Can you do it like this? Like this. Turn your hand. Turn your hand for me, like this. Like this. Yeah, see,